Greetings, welcome to the SciFi Pubcast, the podcast that tries to be a pub and perhaps someday a pub that tries to be a podcast. And as always, we are looking for customers to come visit our bar. So if you're passionate about something and you want to be on a podcast, please let us know, because this bar is all about community. And furthermore, the SciFi Pubcast, we're not doing this for money. We don't have Patreon. We don't sell advertising. If you want to help us out, please consider leaving a 5-star review wherever you find the show and joining our little fan community on Discord. So, my name is Joel. I'm the owner of the SciFi Pubcast, and I'm looking around, and yes, we have a full slate of team members on the show. I see Carrie Simpson, Derek Beebe. Hi, Carrie. And Derek Beebe. And Hi. And also Dr. Randal Graham. Randal.
Afternoon, everybody.
Great. Yes, so we have Carrie, Derek, and Randal, and myself, Joel. Yay. I'm going to take a sip of my drink right now.
Can I be called the doctor, too?
Sure, you're the doctor. From the Higher Educational Institute of Joel's Bar. Yes, I just made you an honorary doctor, okay?
Fake universities are all the rage, I hear.
Yeah. So I tell you what, I'll make you one as well. Randall doesn't need one because he has a real one from established university, but oh well. So yeah.
I don't need to run a fake university. I've tried running my apartment all by myself. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So here we are, doing a podcast. It's interesting times. So let's start with Carrie. Carrie, how you doing?
I'm doing good. We just had our annual memorial practice for O-Sensei this morning. And the difference being that normally we would spend about an hour in the dojo doing some kind of purification practice. But because we can't be in the dojo right now, we spent an hour doing breathing exercises and stuff. So
very
cool.
And it's hot down in the
Yes, it is supposed to be almost 90 degrees today.
Yeah, in Brooklyn,
which has apparently sent a whole bunch of people out to the beach this weekend because reasons. Because I mean, apparently the sunlight is supposed to kill this virus, right?
Only if you inject it into your veins.
Yeah, the liquid variety of sunlight.
Yeah. I wait for certain someones to suggest that we all just start flaying our arms open, and that's how we get the sunlight into the body rather than just through the skin.
See, I don't have.
We should do what the Vikings used to do, the splayed eagle.
Yes.
Where they cut your lungs open and take them out through your back. That should do it.
Yeah. See,
no,
I don't have to
really,
go.
no.
I don't have to go to a beach in Los Angeles. What I'm doing, this is my own personal theory, and this is not medical advice whatsoever. But I think alcohol, if you digest alcohol, it can kill viruses and bacteria and bad things like that. So I'm really trying to drink more alcohol.
Wasn't there a government official? Wasn't there a government official in Africa who sent out coronavirus aid packages to the populace, and they included booze, and I think it was cognac that he sent out, Hennessy, in fact, and he was made to publicly apologize for it because health officials came out and said alcohol may not actually help with the coronavirus. In fact, it can suppress your immune system. So by sending Hennessy out to everyone, he was in a bit of trouble. Now, if you look at alcohol sales in Canada during the whole pandemic, I think people are taking that fellow's advice and deciding that alcohol is helpful in this time, but not necessarily for fighting the virus.
Yes.
Oh, I mean, I've restocked my wine cabinet at least once in the last month, so yay.
I loved a meme I saw going around a few days ago that said the next generation is going to grow up being homeschooled by drunks.
Yeah, by
day drinkers.
Homeschooled by day drinkers, yes.
That's right.
I saw that.
Dear God. And of course, Randall is not a medical doctor, thankfully. Okay.
He's not that kind of dark.
Oh, God. So, Derek, how's things in Pennsylvania?
I am still going to work every day because I work for a bank. So, we're a vital service. We got to be there no matter what. I do have to wear a mask now at work, though.
So you improved the way you look, at least for others.
Yeah. It's funny. You do quickly get used to it. The first day, I felt like I was constantly suffocating and asphyxiating. But after a couple of days, you really stop noticing it.
Are you allowed to be creative and improvise and wear your stormtrooper mask or like Red 5?
No. See, that would interfere with me holding a phone to my ear, so.
Drat.
Right. Hey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why I don't wear the Vader helmet outdoors. Plus, I can't see it. I can't see a thing in that. See anything.
Well, I actually went online to look at ordering a Bane mask because with my haircut, it would work quite well, and I think that would be sort of awesome.
That would be awesome. You're like the pre-Venom injected version of Bane. So like before he injects himself and bulks up.
No way! I'm totally buff now that I've been home working out all the time.
Oh dear.
This I'm not on video. I didn't want to frighten anyone.
Oh wow.
Oh, that's wow. Okay. Yes, Randall's going a bit batty. I can see that. Yes.
Nice.
Oh, Randall.
Oh, don't bring up bats in the context of today's discussion.
Oh, definitely not. Yeah, maybe. Oh, we'll see. Yeah, it's all Batman's fault. That makes sense. Okay. It's a theory. It's a theory out there.
Yeah.
So, Randall, how's things in London, Ontario, Canada?
Pretty good. I'm working on some books. The proofread copies, the advanced reader copies of Afterlife Crisis arrived, and I'm working hard on book 3, and pretty excited about that. But yeah, my daily routine, as I was telling you guys before we started recording, it's gotten pretty dull, which I like. I mean, my life looks a lot like self-isolation most of the time, but I get up 6 or 7. I write for a couple of hours. I go down to the gym so I can get all Bane, and then I watch news and until it makes me hide under the bed with a bottle of hand sanitizer, and then I'm fine. Rinse and repeat.
That's lovely. Yeah, and I can relate. The last time I've been to a bar was March 15th of 2020. Yeah, it's not like I'm keeping track of this stuff. It's been 5-6 weeks. Terrible. Yeah. I've been stuck in Ottawa in my apartment. Luckily, I have a fairly large apartment for downtown Ottawa. It's not a great apartment. It's an old building, but I got space. So I've been watching a lot of streaming services. I've been reading a bit, and trying to stay sane. Yeah. I actually cut down my drinking for the most part the last couple of weeks. So
who are you want to be done with, Joel?
I know. I'm just trying to be healthy. I got a yoga mat. I got some like a medicine ball. I discovered there's yoga channels on YouTube. Yeah. What do I need? Really? Social interaction? Overrated. Nah.
I mean, I have Zoom calls Monday through Friday with my dojo. So, and tomorrow's the conditioning class. So we're going to kick each other's ass. We're going to kick our own asses. Separately in our separate living spaces.
Wow.
So that'll be fun.
On the topic of having Zoom calls every day, can you imagine if this whole ordeal had happened just like 20 years ago?
Yeah, oh God. Yes,
the internet is barely a thing.
Constantly.
Yeah. Like no streaming services, the internet's not a thing. Blockbusters where you get video and you can't go there.
Yeah. Like what would we do with ourselves? We'd be reading more books, or at least I would be.
Drinking?
I would probably be. Yeah, 20 years. Okay, yeah, 20 years ago I would have been 22. Yeah, I would be drinking lots.
Yeah, I would have been at Western actually. Okay, wait.
That'd be awesome. You'd be writing pass-fail exams right now.
Oh wow. What else? Just before we move on to the show. Another update of me, Joel. I've been watching a lot of Disney fandom type stuff. And I've been doing that for a couple months now. But what's keeping me sane is that one of the main fan sites, like Walt Disney World fan sites, is called WDW News Tonight. And it's run by a guy named of Tom Corliss. And he's infamous in the Disney fan community. He's been active for about 10 years. And so I describe him as kind of like the Jon Stewart of the Disney fan community. You either love him or you hate him. So they're doing 2 shows a day. Most of the shows are live shows. So I've been playing in their chat room on YouTube, and it's been entertaining. So yeah.
My best friend, I saw this on my best friend's feed. They are doing this thing tonight with on the Haunted Mansion through Facebook events. It's being hosted by the guy who currently voices Mickey Mouse.
Right.
And with like 2 of their lead, 2 of like their legendary Imagineers.
Yeah, that's good. Even like everyone's doing live events now, and it's amazing. I can't keep up with all of them, but it's keeping a lot of people sane, including myself.
Yeah, no kidding.
I describe myself as sane.
Yeah. Did you guys watch that One World United at Home event last week?
I did.
I did not.
I had it out on in the background while doing other stuff, but it was interesting.
Yeah, my wife and I watched the 3 hours that was played on network television, and then I think it was a full 8-hour program. We went and found some more of the programming on YouTube the next day. I found that really heartwarming. I mean, I know people have criticized the sort of circus atmosphere of let's all entertain each other, but I think entertainment in a time like this is important, particularly when people are so stressed out. People are worried about their loved ones. Some people have to go to the hospital every day and work. And it's nice if they can come home and get some entertainment with all the live events out there being canceled.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah, and plus, I mean, it's not like the performers are doing like what they're normally paid to do.
Yeah, the Rolling Stones didn't need the money.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm looking for the day where I can go out and get a haircut. No, wait a second. Yeah, I'm bald now.
Wait a second.
Definitely looking like Lex Luthor, and I don't like it. I miss my beard. I'm going to say that every single recording I go on. I'm going to say that. I miss my beard.
Okay. I found the event while we were talking. It's the Living Legends of the Haunted Mansion live stream event. It's today. It's at 5 Pacific.
Right. So if all things being equal, I'm going to edit and release the show around the same time the live Facebook event actually starts. Cool. But I'm sure you can go back and watch it recorded anyways. So.
I'm sure it'll be on YouTube or something. But yeah, it's Tanya Norris and Bob Gurr are the ones there, and Brett Ewan, who is the voice of Mickey Mouse, is hosting it. So
I'm sure it will be a spirited event.
So. I'm sure it will be.
Nice.
Hey. Before we move on to our topic discussion, just very quickly, our beer recommendation. Now, personally, I have not had this beer. I saw it on their Instagram account, and I said to myself, I have to actually say this is our beer recommendation because of its name. It's by Big Spruce Brewery, and it's called To Mars and Back Again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like Mars, right? So anything space related, definitely we're going to recommend that. It's a
very nice
bourbon barrel aged Marzen beer. So it's a strong beer at 6.8% alcohol by volume. And again, it's by Big Spruce Brewing, and they are based on Cape Breton Island in Nova Scotia, Canada. And there's a lot of stuff that's been happening in Nova Scotia, so there's a good tie-in there in the sense that Nova Scotia is really hurting for some violence that took place last week. And I think we should always remember that there's more going on in the world than besides this COVID-19 thing. It's making things much more complicated all around.
Could I make an alcohol recommendation as well?
Go ahead.
So I also have not tried this yet because it hasn't been released yet, but I am a member of Knocking Point Wine Club, which is the winery started by Stephen Amell, who played Oliver Queen on Arrow and stuff. And they have partnered with Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis for a Pinot called Quarantine Wine.
Oh, wow.
And 100% of the proceeds are going to charities that will help with COVID-19 response. So,
yes, you can actually drink and do good at the same time.
Yes, you can drink and do good at the same time. So, yeah, if you go to knockingpointwines.com, it's they're still taking pre-orders.
Okay. So, what's the address again? Website?
Knocking Point NOCKING point, as in knock arrow.
Okay. Wow.
Knockingpointwines.com. I joined the wine club last year after the whole because one of their wines, some of their proceeds go to Fuck Cancer, the organization, and that became newly relevant in my life last year. So I've been supporting them through that, and their wines are very nice. And they send me They also send me coffee, so I haven't had to restock my coffee supply yet.
At least you're aiming high. That's good.
I am.
Now, I don't do much drinking, but is quarantine wine like prison wine? Do they make it the same way?
No, Derek. No.
Ouch. Yes, Pennsylvania. Yeah. I have relatives in Pennsylvania. Okay. Right. Let's get on topic, shall we? We've been talking for a bit now. Our topic is fictional pandemics and what they can teach us. Now, if you're like us, you're probably sick of this quarantine business, this lockdown business. This COVID-19 global pandemic is very real, and in fact, it's killing a lot of people, as well as upending our economies, our financial systems, our social interaction, and we're all hurting to certain degrees. But there's hope. We have our intellect, and we have our compassion, and we have a lot of people trying to do good things right now. Pestilence has always been a part of the human story from the very beginning. And in fiction, viruses and diseases are often used as plot devices. So perhaps there's lessons to be learned from such storytelling. Basically, how do people react to a disease that kills a lot of people? So let's talk science fiction and pandemics, shall we? Are you guys with me? I'm sure it's a catchy topic.
Nice.
Joel.
The podcast goes viral.
Hey! So, I don't know. Let's see. How many published novelists do we have on this recording right now? 2. Yes. Yeah. I see you,
2.
Derek. Okay. Let me ask you, Derek, because I know Randal.
I would say 1 plus asterisk. But...
Guys, have you ever used this like a pandemic as a plot device before?
I kind of am in book 3, which I don't want to give away too many spoilers because people haven't read book 2 yet. It doesn't come out until September. But if you've read book 1 of Beforelife, it's no surprise that one of the key things about the world of the afterlife in the world that I've set up for Beforelife is that people don't realize that it's just essentially a mental construct, and that the expectation and desires and wills of the people actually constitute the world. And that information is hidden because you can't have everyone running around with inconsistent desires, screwing up everything, and you just have chaos. So it's all heavily controlled by a few people in power. Well, knowledge of that is spreading by the time you get to book 3. And that knowledge is repeatedly compared to a virus. Because as people infect each other with that knowledge, it destabilizes the nature of reality a little bit, which I mean is not, I hope it's not too heavy-handed a callback to the Bible and the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and the idea that once you lose your naivete, the world goes to hell. But that's been a major metaphor. So not a real virus, but sort of treating the idea that sometimes a little bit of knowledge can be dangerous, and as it spreads around, it can do more harm than good in some cases.
So you're suggesting that being knowledgeable is a way to actually help society or hurt society? Because I think you're thinking on its head, right? Because usually viruses are bad, but you're doing it the other direction.
No, this one's bad, in the sense that some knowledge is probably best kept under wraps.
How to make a suitcase nuke, for instance?
Absolutely. Yeah, stuff that you don't want people to know because it could destabilize society too much. So that's the closest I've come to actually using a virus in my own writing. I've read some of Derek's, but not all, so I don't know whether Derek has ever gone in with the pandemic.
My main story, which is 100% unpublished at this point, biological warfare does play a large part of it down the road. But spoilers. So
very cool.
And I've actually been working on a story for the past 20 years, and part of the storyline is that around 2030, the world gets hit with an engineered pandemic, and I'm really, really sorry. I predicted it, and it was I was too early, or I was too late. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's not. Listen, it's storytelling. Listen, we had the Black Plague before. We had polio before. We had the Spanish flu, which actually started in Kansas, the state of Kansas. If you actually research the Spanish flu of 1918, they thought it started at a military complex in Kansas where they did a lot of riding and where they stabling of horses. Right, we got
Randall, what are you doing?
The static, Randall.
Oh, I'm just sitting here doing nothing. Why is it?
Sounds like you're opening a Velcro strap over and over again.
Oh, sorry, no. I'm sitting here on headphones and I wasn't moving or anything. Is it still going?
Weird.
No, it stopped.
Only the best. Only the best. Yes.
Yeah, no, I'm on an iPad and I've got my headphones with the built-in microphone, and I was just sitting there. Maybe it touched my shirt and I was unaware of it. I can only apologize. But while we're talking about fictional viruses, my absolute favorite one that I think about a lot, because in one of my other lives I'm an ethics professor, is the morphogenic virus created by Section 31 in Star Trek Deep Space Nine to wipe out the changelings.
Right.
And the interesting thing about that virus was that it was biological warfare, and it worked. And it was like the good guys. You had to create a secret bad guy faction of the good guys in order to do the thing that was actually required to stop the war. I mean, technically, it was the cure to the virus that stopped the war. Bashir came up with the cure after getting it out of Sloan's mind, but the creation of that virus was the thing that ultimately led to peace throughout the galaxy. And that's creepy as hell and a really interesting storytelling device.
It is creepy as hell. I've heard the argument that using Section 31 and the mirror universe in Trek is kind of a way of getting around the whole Roddenberry-esque future idea. And it seems a bit convenient, but also if anyone's been watching Picard, I think that even humanity in general terms doesn't need a whole lot of assistance in that capacity.
Yeah,
like they're perfectly capable of getting really, really paranoid and when they are forced out of their comfort zones too many times.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. And while I also agree that some of the storylines involving Section 31 or the Mirror Universe can be a little bit contrived, I just love them.
Oh, I do too.
I find them totally compelling.
I do too. I find them fascinating, but and then the fact that they kind of got woven together for Discovery is even more fun. But still, yeah, it is a bit contrived and a bit too easy to blame this all on a couple on either Section 31 or the Mirror Universe, and not say, hey, this is us trying to work through this is us continuing to try to work through our issues and become better people.
Well, the really interesting thing I find springing from that is that they don't want to break away from this notion that, the Federation is largely a united whole. Romulans are generally a united whole. The Klingons are a united whole. Like, we seem to have stopped most civil wars, leaving aside Gowron versus Duras and that kind of stuff. But for the most part, we present races, at least, or alliances as big unified wholes without thinking about the way in which these sorts of tragedies, these sorts of global issues can actually make societies implode in on themselves. And I've been thinking about that a lot the last few days, with both in Canada and the US, the protesters about the lockdown. Right? Like, instead of us all having one unified approach, even when it's something like there's this invisible virus out there that is going to whack you if you're not careful. And we have people going, nope, that's totally made up. And we've got that in Canada. They've got that in the US. I just saw on Twitter today, Berlin had a massive protest to end the lockdown today. And as I saw someone memeing on the internet the other day, all of the past zombie movies have missed out on the plot line of the protesters who insist on being eaten by zombies, or who think that zombies are a hoax.
Yeah.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, this pandemic is in a way less exciting than the fictional pandemics because I mean there aren't zombies or vampires involved or massive global unrest. It's just a bunch of people being incited by maybe a handful of rich people that want everyone to go back to doing what they were doing before.
Yeah,
and stuff.
But there's also the fact that you can't pay rent because you're not working.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
You want to go back to work, right? And
right.
It's a cost-benefit analysis. Yeah, sure. There's about a 5% mortality rate or fatality rate, but I gotta pay. I have to pay my bills to survive and take care of my family. So what's more important, my family or someone else's? So
that's right. I was surprised when they had the stat out about the average North American person has about 2 weeks worth of savings, right? And so
2 weeks, yeah, not even that.
Yeah, and so when you turn off the tap, it's no wonder that the sort of second epidemic is the epidemic of poverty, where people just aren't being paid anymore. And I agree wholeheartedly with Joel's sentiment, the notion that people are faced with, am I going to starve or am I going to die of a disease? Starvation is 100% fatal, and the disease has a lower percentage of fatality. I mean, I am not with the protesters, but I do understand the frustration that's leading some of them, at least. I think some of them are just whacked out yahoos, but with respect. But some of them, I can understand the urges that deliver one out of the house and into the protests.
Well, I mean, I understand it too, but at the same time, it's like, this entire situation has pretty well exposed, a lot of the shortcomings of the current social economic system. In that, we're all realizing that all of the essential workers are people that we don't pay well enough to do what they need to do to survive, and those are the people who actually have to go out to work and be in a position to potentially expose themselves to this disease, while many of the rest of us can just do our work from home.
Yeah, perhaps it's not a good idea to tie healthcare to employment. Just saying.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
that's become painfully obvious.
Well, to some, not to others. People.
Yeah. It was painfully obvious to some of us, but now it's becoming painfully obvious to more people. Yeah. So,
but it's interesting because what happens after all this is done with, if it's ever done with, right? Will states present more of a communal group interaction, a way of dealing with it, or are there those who are still going to be so individualistic despite not serving their interests, right? The protesters in the States and in Canada, for instance, right? Okay, and I don't think that many protesters in Canada. I think it's mostly an American phenomenon, but I'm sure there's stuff happening out west. Oh, there was Queen's Park in Toronto, right? That's what you're referring to, Randal?
Yeah, that was yesterday. And our premier, who is politically allied with a lot of the people who would have gone out there, it seems to be a phenomenon of the right to protest the stay-at-home orders because the left is of the view that socialism is saving capitalism's bacon right now. A lot of right-wing folk were out protesting at Queen's Park. And it's interesting, we have a right-wing premier right now who came out and actually called the people yahoos and said that you're putting everybody at risk, go home. And I was quite interested in his response. I thought it was the correct response, that you're putting everybody at risk and we can't have an economic recovery until we have a public health recovery.
Yeah. Has this ever been dealt with in fiction before? Like you have things like usually in fiction when there's a disease or a virus, 99% of the population gets killed, right? and then we're
Right.
in the world of The Walking Dead or Stephen King's The Stand, right? Where you have these,
or The Strain. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a typo. So, the Stand. Yeah, sorry.
No,
It's
The Strain, the trilogy that they turned into, that was co-written by Guillermo del Toro, and they turned it into a TV series.
Oh,
it was,
right. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. I said The Strain. That was not a typo.
No, it was a typo because in the show notes I put Stephen King, the Strand, and I meant to put The Stand, right? I read the book back in the day.
Well, I did too.
Amazing, yeah.
The only virus in fiction I can think of that I might have protested getting a cure to was the polywater intoxication in The Naked Time and The Naked Now in Star Trek. When everyone started behaving like they were drunk, and Tasha learned how to do the robot, and by which I mean she had sex with Data.
And the crew of the Enterprise D discovered what a swinging party was.
That's right. It was awesome.
Because, yeah, it's like that. That's been a running joke with the mission log guys, is that the crew of the Enterprise D of Next Gen doesn't understand what a party is.
That's awesome. And you'd think if any virus were going to be named after Corona, it would be that one.
Yeah. I know. In my research, I stumbled upon a Wikipedia entry called "The List of Fictional Diseases," and there's maybe 100 on it, right? And I was shocked to see how many lists of fictional diseases that's on the list is straight out of parody and satire, right? There's 2 diseases from from the Smurfs, the hopping cough, or they have there's a disease they mention in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and they're all treated very seriously. It just is great. But yeah, it's diseases. It's one thing to be struck down by something and you die. It's another thing to be turned into a zombie. It's another thing to be disfigured. I've been watching a lot of Star Trek Voyager in the last couple of weeks, and I am on season 3 now, season 4. I missed it because by the time when Voyager was on the first time, I was all Star Trek out. I was just oversaturated and enough because of my age, and so I'm actually seeing Voyager for the first time, and I must admit,
wow!
I must admit, it's very optimistic. It's very bright.
So if you're in season 3, have you hit? I think it's the 12th episode in season 3. I might be wrong entirely about that, but Macrocosm with the giant viruses that invade the Voyager, and that's the one where Janeway gets all action hero and runs around in a tank top shooting at them with phasers.
No, not
yeah.
yet.
I remember. I vaguely remember that. It's been a while since I watched Voyager, but yeah.
That's a really good episode, and a lot of people, not a lot, but several people on the most recent Star Trek cruise dressed up as that version of Janeway.
Oh, wow.
Just because we finally got to see an action hero captain.
Hey.
And I suppose Picard and Starship Mine sort of did an action hero captain.
You mean Die Hard in Space?
That's right. But the iteration of that played on Voyager was with a giant virus that went around attacking everyone. And Janeway and the Doctor had to work together to stop that. But yeah, viruses keep popping up in Star Trek in particular. One that popped into my mind when Joe sent the show notes around was the Klingon augment virus. The retcon explanation of why Klingons in the original series don't look like Klingons in subsequent series. Leaving Discovery out of this for now, but
well, okay. Yeah. I mean, with Discovery, they have not actually contradicted that yet.
No, they haven't. They haven't at all. But they do look more like Narn from Babylon 5 than they do look like any other iteration of Klingon.
Well,
I love me some
season 2. They started to look. Season 2, they started to look more like the traditional Klingons, kind of.
Absolutely true. But yeah, I actually liked. People don't like Enterprise. I do like Enterprise, and I actually liked the explanation for the augment virus being the thing that transformed the Klingons. I thought that was cleverly done.
Well, yeah, I forget that was done by Dr. Soong.
Well, Dr. Soong had made human augments, and the Klingons were experimenting with augment DNA to try to augment Klingon warriors as well. And in doing that, they erred and ended up making themselves look more human-like, and that's in theory, where this whole generation of Klingons who look like humans came from.
Yeah, that was actually kind of hinted at in some of the novels, which I realized don't really count. But I was glad to see that they actually took that concept and did something with it in actual Star Trek lore. Mm-hmm. So I found that rather fascinating.
Yeah, I thought it was very good. I also, I will admit, I was the only person probably who I know, unless one of you will break this myth, who actually liked it in The Trouble with Tribbles, or Trials and Tribulations, when Worf saw the Klingons who looked like humans and said, "We don't discuss it," and that was the only explanation.
Oh, I love that. That was perfect.
I thought that was perfect.
Yeah.
See, my only question with that is, what is how, like, were Koloth, King, and Kor undercover then, or what was it with those three that they looked like, the mutated Klingons, quote unquote, and then when we see them again in Deep Space Nine, they look like normal Klingons.
Maybe I assume got cured between TOS and DS9.
Yeah, I assumed that they'd been surgically restored. Now that we can make humans look like Klingons through surgical alteration, that they might have done something like that.
Fair enough.
But who can know? Because again, there are so many continuity difficulties in long-term shows, long-running shows, that these things can't be helped.
Yeah. So Star Trek: The Voyager, I'm still dealing with the Vidians and the Phage.
Oh, that's awesome!
Oh,
yeah, I know. I've read.
Phage was creepy.
I've read. I know. Yeah, I know what happens and all this stuff. But yeah, just the way they treat it. So you have these. How would you describe the Vidians? I won't do it justice. So you have an entire society that basically operates around trying to find a cure for this god-awful, horrible, disfiguring disease. And they got to the point where at least a power body in their society is they go out and they steal organs from living people. Like, this is like right out of Monty Python, organ donation. If you know Monty Python meaning of life jokes. But yeah, it's interesting how they see it. And then you have others within the society who thinks, no, it's probably morally bad to go out and actually kill other people for their organs.
I don't remember that story well. Was the phage a naturally occurring virus, or was it biological warfare?
It was naturally occurring.
Okay.
At least we're led to believe that. I don't think they actually answer where it came from.
Yeah, so I'm on the whole Memory Alpha fandom site and describes the phage as a disease that afflicted the Vidians, killing thousands daily for approximately 2,000 years. And the disease was highly adapted to nearly every new form of medical treatments, and it goes on from there. Yeah.
The thing I really liked about the Vidians is it shows how Crisis is a driver of technological change, because the Vidians, the only field in which they were way more advanced beyond Federation technology was medical science.
Yeah. And
you would be if for 2,000 years you're battling a virus.
Yeah, it's like, it's like the World War II when advances in ways of killing people advanced so much. The development of the nuclear atomic bomb by the Americans, or the V-2 rockets by Germany.
Yeah, or injectable disinfectants.
Yeah.
Sorry, not medical advice.
No. Once
Disclaimer.
Again, do not inject disinfectants into yourself. Okay.
Although shining sunshine in your mouth can't hurt. It won't help anything, but it's a lovely thought.
Listen, I'm actually I'm living downtown Ottawa, right? Okay, so along the Rideau Canal, and there's bike paths, everything, and the city National Capital Region has basically blocked up the street for the last week, so you can actually walk up and down the street as well, right? So I've been cooped up in my apartment for a week. I'm completely healthy, so I strap on a mask. I go out yesterday, and I lasted for 10 minutes because there's so many people just trying to get some sunlight and some fresh air. And yesterday was like the first warm day in weeks in Ottawa. By warm, I mean it's like, I don't know, 65. So if you okay, Fahrenheit.
You sweet summer. It's been 90 all weekend. Yeah. Which again, apparently sent a whole crap ton of people to the beaches and just, okay.
Yeah, like, I haven't been to a bar in 5 weeks. I really want to go out and socialize, but this is just going to prolong things, you know?
Yeah, well, and you know what? It's weird because I've actually been socializing more since we've been in lockdown because I have Zoom calls every night with my dojo. I'm like participating in group chats with people. I'm still working, so I still have to take calls during the day from home. So I'm still interacting with people, and I'm sure I probably miss the physical contact, but I'm kind of socialed out in a way, just from like being constantly talking to like everyone right now. It's weird.
Well, there's been some discussion of that, of how interaction via a screen is for some people more taxing than interaction in person. I don't personally find that, but I know my spouse, she's in her residency year to become a clinical psychologist, and she's been offering teletherapy via something akin to Skype, but it's a medically created one that follows all of the privacy guidelines that are required by legislation. Anyway, she does therapy that way, and people do report that it's much more exhausting to be reacting over a screen repeatedly than it is to actually just chill out with someone. I think maybe you have to watch for more social cues from the person. You have to look at their face more. You have to. You're not just in the same environment experiencing it together. So it might be a different way of taking in information about what the other person is expecting from you on a social level. But yeah, a lot of people would be right there with you, Carrie, saying that this is an exhausting form of socializing. I, for one, have found the desire to reach out to people electronically has really heightened, because there are friends of mine from New Brunswick who, you know, I might go a year without talking to, other than sending them an email now and then, who now I want to see them, right? Like, I guess because we can't, you want to, right? The forbidden fruit becomes tempting. Yeah. And so, yeah, we're having a Zoom session with them tonight.
Well, and also, I mean, I know it doesn't sound like it when we're real recording and stuff, but I'm actually an introvert, so I don't like too much human interaction. It's very draining to me, and yeah, it just, so, you know, occasionally I just have to, you know, shut all the screens down and go read a paper book or something, or you know, go take a nap.
Yeah, same here. I'm very introverted, and I mean, I love my job, but it does require me to stand up in front of a room full of people and talk about stuff. So my natural state is hiding alone in my office. Those aspects of the pandemic would be much harder on other people than they would be on me and Carrie.
Yeah. I've been an extrovert for most of my life, but maybe in the last 10, 20 years in my professional life, I've become, because of nature, what I do for a living, I've become much more introverted. So I never liked crowds to begin with. Now it's like, I need to have a select group of people to go and socialize, and there's like a switch that has to be flicked for me to become social Joel. So how I'm keeping sane is I'm thinking to myself, I'm in my apartment. It's just like being in a spaceship, and you're on your way to Mars just for like 2 years, right? You have to deal with it. So we're seeing kind of a glimpse of the future. Or we can have a glimpse of the past. Yes, I'm on a sailing ship from the 18th century, and we're crossing the Atlantic Ocean. And there's not much to be done for 3 months. So enjoy yourself. So it's definitely a change in the way you have to look at that. And to me, I'm playing these games mentally, right? You know, not saying it's like, it could be worse. I just have to deal with it. It's like people who are in the military gets confined to barracks. They can deal with isolation quite well. Prisoners from jails, they also can deal with isolation quite well because they're used to it.
Or they get used to it.
Yeah, exactly. Most of the population, not so much.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting that, and I was actually saying this a few weeks ago with regards to Picard, without getting into spoiler territory, but it's interesting how things like this will knock people out of their sense of complacency.
Maybe.
And suddenly they have to deal with the realities of life instead of just wandering through like oh I have this, I have the ability to do this and this. Well, suddenly we don't have the ability to do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And how a society handles that is very interesting.
We need holodecks.
Oh, that'd be great.
We holodecks of the Oasis. Now.
Why is it science is always the answer, right? Science is always the way you get the cure for the bad thing that's happening, right? You look at that, The Expanse, season 4, episodes 7 and 8. I'm on another podcast that deals with The Expanse. I just watch it. Right, they're without going too spoilerly, right? Okay, they're on this planet, and bad things are happening, and one of the bad things that's happening is everyone's going blind.
Right.
How do they fix the problem, story-wise? Oh, you finally
science.
Have science. You have
Geography.
Scientists actually figured it out. A scientist.
Right.
Amazing.
Well, it's not a pandemic or a plague by any stretch of the imagination, but I mean that was basically the solution in the Martian. He survived by sciencing the crap out of things.
Yeah.
That's because those fictional worlds didn't have Jenny McCarthy to contend with.
Oh, God. Oh, Derek, you're still here. I thought you were passed out unconscious.
Or Dr. Phil.
Oh, Dr. Phil and Dr. Oz. They've been great. Oh my gosh.
See, I don't watch that, but you're married, so I'm sure your spouse may have watched that. Am I being too judgmental? I don't know.
That's funny.
I just saw the aftermath on Twitter and just like, oh gods, please.
Yeah, I saw the ensuing
why do we
memes.
listen to these people?
I saw the ensuing memes, but I write a little bit about that sort of stuff. As you'll recall from Beforelife, Joel's already drinking. I deal with sharing room philosophy, where they quote a lot of things that sound like they come straight out of The Secret or Dr. Oz or Dr. Phil. And so I make fun of that stuff a little bit. So I do have to keep up to date in what those yahoos are talking about. But if you don't mind, I have a sci-fi question about the current pandemic. And if you had to self-isolate with any character from sci-fi, who would it be and why? And while you guys think of it, I will tell you my answer. I would pick Data, I think, because it'd be like having a better version of Wikipedia, like the internet at your fingertips. Just ask him about anything. And also, he wouldn't get pissed off at you as any other two people quarantined together might be inclined to do, because he lacks the emotional context unless it's post-emotion chip data. But I think that would be a safe choice. But I'm interested in hearing what you guys would pick.
What happened?
Until he questions too much stuff, and then you just like, oh, please shut yourself off now.
And what happens if it's not Data, but lore shows up, and you just don't know it's lore? Would that affect your decision?
Well, he might kill me, which would suck. That would be a downside. Or he'd find some way to create an alliance with the virus.
Listen, I told you guys, I've been watching a lot of Disney fan cast stuff out there, okay? So all the podcasters, all the networks are doing this basically the same similar thing, right? You top 5 this in this scenario, and that scenario. And the thing with Disney is that you actually have parks. So a lot of it's like park-centric stuff. So I'm going to recycle a joke. To answer your question, Randall, as a preamble, I know who I don't want to be with. I don't want to be with Trader Sam from Disney, from the Jungle Cruise. That'd be bad. I like to keep my head. But who I would like to be with, and because that'd be kind of cool. We have, we can talk about this. It'd be banter. Howard the Duck. Why not? Birds of the feather. Come on.
I think I've been single and living alone too long. I don't know that I could spend a day, more than 2 days with anyone, except maybe Loki. Loki would be interesting.
See,
at least I would be entertained. At least I would be entertained. If you're listening,
if you're listening,
I'm not. I am being a good heathen. I accept that that any chaos you would bring to my life would probably be a welcome change.
Oh, God.
I think I can understand where you're coming from with that one, Carrie. I think with Joel, the problem with Howard the Duck is, while you might successfully avoid COVID, you might end up with bird flu.
Oh, well, I'm already a crack, so it doesn't really matter.
Nice. So, Derek, you're picking 7 of 9, and why?
Yes, I initially thought of illicit answers, but I decided to go with something respectful.
Oh, good.
The first thing So at first I thought Dr. Manhattan, because he can cure the virus. But then I realized he wouldn't bother to cure the virus because he doesn't care. So I decided to go with Batman, because if he has enough time to prepare, he can defeat any situation. So he would find a cure for the virus.
See, my theory is the Joker created the virus out of bat DNA in order to malign Batman.
You know what? It's as good a theory as any, I guess.
Well, it's better than some.
Very true.
Some we've seen in public, yeah.
You know, the biggest problem with me being now active on a Disney fan community site is they have to keep it G or PG rated. So when they ask you the question, what Disney princesses do you want to be with for if you have to pick 5? Okay. Yeah.
How is that ever G rated?
It's problematic.
You have to come up with an answer that's G rated, or maybe just maybe PG rated at the very most.
Like, I was in the chat room, and it's basically a bunch of 40-year-olds and 30-year-olds, and then there's a kid who's 16 years old. It's like, oh, what are we doing? Okay. Oh, I'm terrible.
I don't even know which of the Disney princesses would be like of age.
Well, fast forward, the whole time, I know. Okay.
I think Snow White would be okay, because she'd just stay asleep the whole time, and you wouldn't be bothered by her, right? She wouldn't eat your food. She's passed out on an apple.
And she's like,
Sleeping Beauty, the same.
Yeah.
And she's like,
any of the nappy ones are good. Those nappy princesses. They're the best ones.
Oh, God. Yes. Wow.
I'd be sad if you were trapped with Ariel, because I don't even have a pool, and she'd just be flopping around.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it's like we're still in the middle of a drought here anyway, too. So Ariel being over here in California, I mean, I could just dump her in the ocean, I guess.
And I think I've now tapped out my knowledge of Disney princesses with that.
I like Alien Queen myself, but that probably would not be a person you want to be with in Darren Watson.
No, she'd eat your face off.
Yeah, it'd be terrible. Yeah.
Although you could use the face hugger as a mask.
Oh, cool. Yeah, it'd be bad.
Yeah, sure.
For a little while.
Oh, great. I just turned this into a Disney podcast. Lovely.
I mean, the alien is a Disney queen now, isn't she?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because
I had not made that connection.
The Alien franchise is now owned by it's a Fox franchise, therefore it is now owned by Disney. Therefore, the alien from the movies is now a Disney queen or princess.
Dr. Frankenfurter is a Disney queen now too.
Yes.
Nice.
And yeah,
so
I think Klinger might also be a Disney queen now. Purple Klinger from MASH.
Yeah.
Lovely. Well, let's change the conversation to this. Why is there so many conspiracy theories around diseases and pandemics? Because, it's either going to be a Chinese lab or an American lab that it's a designer-type virus that goes out and kills most of the population. Why is that always a trope in science fiction?
Well, it's more interesting to have a human antagonist than just a natural disaster. So you need to have someone that you can go after and defeat at the end of the story.
Yeah, but, is it Joel working from his apartment and he was cooking dinner one night, and he screwed up the ingredients, and suddenly there's a biohazard that launches a pandemic? What?
Oh my God!
That's not dramatically interesting, though.
Everything happened in Derek's kitchen. Now it all makes sense. fillet of bat.
Yeah. Why haven't we fired Derek yet? Oh, okay.
That'll be that'll be in bad taste.
Nice. Well, I think
no. I stole that. That's inside joke.
That was very nice. Well, I mean, people like to be mistrustful of government and to think that they're not being fed the whole truth. There are, of course, lots of examples that are less dramatic and exciting in the world when we haven't been fed the whole truth by our governments, sometimes for our own good, sometimes because the government wants to hide something moderately nefarious, not on the scale of a global pandemic. But Derek's exactly right. It's narratively more interesting to find someone to blame. It's also, from our law background, the notion of mens rea. There has to be someone at fault, right? Like, we like to find fault. And if you can't point your finger, it's just, wow, the world is this bad. And the world is nasty, and life is brutish and short. And I think it would conflict with some people's religious outlook as to how the world is constructed, right? The world is supposed to be there for our benefit. It's not supposed to be eating our faces. And so you look for a villain. There must be someone to overcome rather than just sciencing the hell out of a problem.
Yeah.
And so many of our environmental dangers have been overcome so long ago. Like, I mean, cold and heat and all that by climate-controlled dwellings, that the idea of something out there in the environment that you can't even see, that's going to kill you, it's too difficult to swallow for some people, or it's too painful to swallow. They'd rather have someone they can confront and, go blame some other nationality, go blame some other form of government or some economic system that is at blame 5G. That's just the loopiest thing. And people are knocking over 5G towers in the UK because they coincide with places where there are outbreaks, ignoring for the fact, well, for now, that they, anywhere with high density has a big outbreak of the disease, and high density is where you want your 5G towers. We might as well say ice cream shops are causing it, or anything else that occurs more frequently in high density population zones. But I think Derek's right. It's narratively more interesting. We want to believe something that makes sense in the way that we stitch together the stories we have about the world we live in. And also, it's blame is good. One of the first things we do now in our litigious society is assign blame. It's all lawyers' fault, basically.
Yeah, there you go. But Randall,
the reason that people generally buy into conspiracy theories is people have a deep-seated need to feel the sense that there is some kind of guiding hand behind the universe, that it's not just random brutality. So they would rather believe that there is some, invisible arcing conspiracy that's masterminding all these events, rather than just, random tragedy or a lone gunman shooting JFK. It's more convenient for them to believe that there is a structure to the world that they live in. It's the same reason, people feel the need for religion. They need to feel the sense that someone out there has answers, that it's not all just random insanity.
But certainly people like Spock thinks the universe is unfolding as it should be, right? Okay? You can believe in God, you can have religion without being a conspiracy theorist.
Right. Well, so, it's kind of the, there are people in society who believe that it is perfectly okay to use up all the natural resources on the planet because God will create more. And the rest of us, and those of us who look at that and realize that they are basically taking things for granted because they think that more will just magically appear, are going, what the bloody hell are you talking about?
Yes, and Carrie, remember, you're in the SciFi Pubcast, you can swear.
Yeah, what the fuck are you talking about? Okay. And get off the science committees.
But we are talking about superstitions, right? That's a form of superstition.
It is.
Superstitionist, right? Okay. Instead of sacrificing a bunch of chickens or having a shaman basically curing you or drinking bleach, because apparently that cures COVID-19 by the
Don't drink bleach, people.
Okay.
Do not drink bleach.
Please don't. Okay.
Please don't drink bleach.
Okay?
We are not at all medical professionals.
Yeah, but these are easy solutions to serious problems.
Yeah.
Right.
And part of the problem is that nothing is ever that easy.
Exactly, because we live in a very complicated world.
Yes.
And I can see, like, Rand used a legal term called mens rea, right? A very simplistic version of that is having some sort of guilty mind. It's more complicated than that, because of course it is, because the real world, and we're talking about law. And there's different ways to have mens rea, right? Basically, the very bottom end is kind of like recklessness or negligence or criminal negligence, right? So if we can't blame a Chinese lab instead of a wet market in China as a way where, this virus leap species, then who else can we blame? Or perhaps our own border control. Perhaps we should have shut down our economy months ago to stop this thing, right? There's a lot of blame to go around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, well,
we're all screwed. Is my general philosophy on this.
Well, I like to hope we're temporarily screwed.
Yes.
I have been heartened by the degree to which the human race has come together and behaved relatively sensibly, which is quite a thing to say about the human race. A large
percentage of the human race has gotten together and behaved sensibly.
And I realize
a small percentage that is embarrassing the rest of us.
But isn't it nice that it's a small percentage? And I realize
it's very nice that it's a small percentage, but they are very, very loud. And this is why we can't have nice things, people.
It's true. And I realize that in saying this, we're setting ourselves up as judges of what is sensible and what is not sensible. But I think that's the only way we can muddle through. But I have been heartened at the way people are coming together. People are doing nice things for each other, and how you can help people by just living your life quietly at home and not going out and inflicting damage. And people for whom that is quite difficult are doing that. And maybe in some tiny way, things like the SciFi Pubcast can give people a reason to stay at home for an hour or two and listen to something and not go out and cough on somebody. So I have been very impressed by the content creators who've been going out there and generating things for us to watch while we're going through this. People who've hosted thoughtful discussions of this sort of thing to take our mind tangentially away from, the worry that our loved ones are going to get infected and die. Like, instead we can think about Disney princesses and science fiction for a few minutes.
Right.
I really have been impressed with my fellow humans over the last little while, with the occasional exception where I just want to smack my head a little bit. It takes away my worry. I worry about you guys. I worry about my other friends. And it's nice to see people working hard to keep those worries to a minimum by avoiding all of this disease and death that's out there.
Yeah, listen, I have two elderly aunts. I have a brother that works at Walmart in Buffalo, New York, who deals with people all the time. And I'm worried as hell because that's my universe. Most of my relatives have passed on. So it's like I have a very few loved ones who I need to take care of because I feel that way. And it's tough times all around.
I get it. Yeah, my wife goes into the hospital every day, and I'm nervous every day when she goes in. She wears a mask now, and they do the full questionnaire every time she enters. And she's not involved directly in patient care of anyone with any sort of respiratory issue, but just the fact that you're going to a hospital where in the same building as her are a bunch of people with COVID.
Yeah.
And this is my wife. And but when you see people working so hard to keep her safe there at the hospital, it feels good that people do want to try to protect each other as much as possible.
And I think a lot of people, they think they might be hoping, but they may be hurting, right? It's like, I'm bored. I'm going to order a bunch of things from Amazon or Shop Disney, right? So I'm going to put a delivery guy to come in my building to have exposure of that. I'm putting someone else in danger. Is that fair? I don't know. But if I don't do that, the guy doesn't have a job and he can't pay his rent.
Yeah, it's all a balancing act. Everything has become a balancing act, right? Like either I order a whole bunch of delivery groceries and expose that person to the grocery store, or I myself go to the grocery store and acquire those things. And if we have one guy in circulation buying groceries for 50 people and getting paid to do it, is that better than 50 people going out themselves and interacting in the grocery store? Probably. But as we've pointed out several times, I'm not a medical doctor, and I just take my cues from like Dr. Anthony Fauci. I am so impressed with him. He just seems fantastic. The Dr. Theresa Tam in Canada. Oh, Joel's going off to get another beer.
Yeah, that's sorry. Sorry.
If you mention Dr. Anthony Fauci, Joel has to chug.
Well, plus he's being very awesome about stuff, and he has to put up with the dear leader shit. 7 days a week. So yeah, give that man a medal.
Yeah, did you see the cold open? Did you see the cold open Saturday Night Live last night?
I did not. I heard about it.
Not yet. I know who plays him though.
Yeah, it was well done. And without spoiling the content, the lovely thing was I've never seen anything like this in a cold open, but I don't purport to be an SNL aficionado. Brad Pitt took the costume off and just gave a sincere thank you to Anthony Fauci for all the work he's doing, as well as the other frontline workers. And awesome. Yeah, I thought that was very nicely done. And it was also a hilarious sketch without giving any jokes away for Derek's benefit. But I've also been impressed with Dr. Deborah Birx, with Dr. Theresa Tam in Canada. And have you noticed how many of these leading health officials across the world are female? It seems to be a lot of people who go into public health and epidemiology. I don't mean to draw any lines here, but it struck me how many of them going into public service with medicine are female leaders in epidemiology who are helping us all not die right now. And I just found that to be sort of demographically interesting.
But Randall, you say anything about lawyers in law school. Most of students at law school nowadays are women, not men. Yeah,
Western is now, I think we're like 55-45, female to male. Higher education is starting to mirror society a little bit more, which is nice. I've been very impressed with our public health officials who've been, and of course, Dr. Theresa Tam is Canadian, but she is of Asian ethnicity, and we've seen horrible things being said about people with that particular background. And she has just stood up as a pillar of the community, not letting that stuff apparently bother her, just getting on with telling us how to not die. And these people, I mean, I just want to, I'm not on video, but I'm here making the worship motion where I bow down repeatedly at how fantastic these people have been. And it's nice to see that there are heroes in times of crisis.
And agreed. Not the medical, does the medical side, which is extremely important. It's a supply chain side too. How we feed people. I'm worried about famine. I worried about the supply chain being reduced or destroyed or be horribly damaged.
All those meat packing plants that have gone under.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I'm a type of guy who thinks not like I'm a strategic thinker in the sense that I see not one anxiety thing or one thing I should be anxious about. I see 18 down the road. That's causation. And I think our society, and when I say society, I mean Western society, I think it's going to change fundamentally. It's changing right now. Give it 10 years after we recover from that, how that's going to affect things. Using the Disney example again, right? What do you do with these Disney parks? Do you how to keep masses of people from, in a park that's designed to hold masses of people, but in a very closed space? We are going through a fundamental change how we interact, and it's scary as hell.
Yeah, it is scary, but the alternative is we could all be dead, I guess.
That isn't an option for me. I need to live.
One wonders how quickly medical science will adapt, and if we'll have a great leap forward. I obviously have no knowledge that's relevant to this discussion. Just hope and optimism that much like, as Joel was mentioning, World War II gave rise to a great leap in technology. Maybe we'll have a great leap in economic systems. Maybe we'll have a great leap in medical systems now that we know that we're in a world where pandemics like this can happen and shut down the entire economy in a matter of days. Maybe we will adapt. Well, of course we will adapt, but either we'll adapt in a way that's horrible, or we'll adapt in a way that leads to a large benefit for a large number of people. I can only hope for the latter.
I know JPL and NASA are currently working on a new system of ventilators. So that, I mean, people are trying to, again, science the crap out of this thing.
Yeah.
And hopefully that helps.
I watch Cosmos. That's just my dedication.
Yes,
to
I
science.
finished. Yeah,
I also donate to the
finished
Planetary Society. I'm a member, but yeah. So it's hard when you're not a science type and you have to rely on science. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, have we tried homeopathy?
Oh God. Essential oils.
Sorry, I come from love, but sometimes I mock.
God, it's like, what can we do? As individuals, we all have choices to make. And yes, I'm an existentialist. I spent a lot of time, especially when I was younger, reading a lot of existential philosophy type books. So we have choices. Do I stay on my couch and watch, Disney fan site once again, or Netflix or Disney Plus? Besides that, I really want to go down and walk down the block. I should pop in my bar. They're doing takeout. I can just talk there for a bit. No, I'm going to stay in.
From the door.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, I still have to figure out my laundry situation, but I can hold off for another. That's actually a benefit of not having to leave my house. I don't have to. I'm pretty much wearing my pajamas all the time now, so I don't have to do as much laundry as I used to.
I know my apartment building, we have this Facebook group. Everyone's have these social supportive Facebook groups now. So I'm in a building where there's a lot of young students, there's a lot of working political people, and then there's a lot of elderly people who've been there since the building opened in the late 60s. And there are vulnerable populations in my building. But if they need anything, they just post it on the Facebook group, and someone's going to get it to them. So it's really neat to see the whole community, community involvement. At the same time, that's only part of the population. Probably the majority of the population. It's the minority that scares me. It's the people who are protesting this is completely fake.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're all screwed.
So how you cannot reason with a guy or with a person who buys into a belief system like conspiracy theories? You can't. Like, how do you address that? You have to control them, and you have to try to minimize their power base.
Right.
Yeah, a big chunk of the next book I'm working on deals with flat earthers, right? And some people take scientific things that have been established forever and just decide to deny it. Deny. And when you run out of the capacity to deal with someone based on reason, my own view is you run out of the capacity to deal with that person. It's very scary. The other thing I've noticed is that the greater the global issue being dealt with, the harder it is to continue to talk about science fiction.
Why do you say that?
Oh, just because we've been talking about the real stuff for so much of this podcast. It's interesting.
It's like suddenly the science fiction is becoming real. It's like, real in all the wrong ways.
Yeah, although, when the Andromeda strain is out your window, you end up not talking so much about the show.
Yeah, fiction.
But even the Andromeda strain, the virus moved way faster than. The coronavirus is moving pretty fast, but not that fast.
Yeah, science fiction.
Yeah, I just keep coming back to this whole idea that the apocalypse was supposed to be a little more exciting than this. And all we have to do is just stay home on our couches and watch Netflix for the foreseeable future.
That has probably been my favorite meme I've seen in this whole crisis was what I thought my apocalypse uniform was going to look like and what it does look like. What I thought it was going to look like is a picture of Trinity from The Matrix. Uh-huh. And what it does look like is a cat in a onesie lying on a couch.
Well, yeah, between those memes and the memes pointing out that all of us Gen Xers have been preparing for this our whole lives. Back when we were left alone, we were left home alone for hours on end and having to entertain ourselves.
Absolutely.
I've been taking care of myself since I was like 6, and all you people who can't cook and stuff, what have you been doing with your lives?
I think science fiction is about speculation, and we're speculating right now in real life. And I think it's very similar, and it's very scary. Yeah. I've heard this joke before. I follow, on the peripheral at least, a lot of the UFO nonsense, because I think it's great storytelling. So I listen to a couple podcasts, all this stuff, and I usually go towards the more realistic, scientific types who are also appreciative of good storytelling and trying to explain this subgroup, which is very much like a religion. And the joke is that in the UFO world for decades now, there's going to be a moment in our lives where the disclosure is going to happen. The U.S. government is going to admit there's been aliens visiting us. Again, conspiracy theory stuff, right? Okay? Imagine if suddenly the U.S. government admits there's been aliens at Area 51. How would people react? They go nuts. Look what's happening right now. It's just so silly. And that's the joke, right? We have these governments. We live in a democracy. Like, even a faulty democracy is still a democracy. And yet, the governments must be doing something bad behind closed doors. So
it's interesting. We come up with these stories without thinking the simple question: why would any government in power want to destroy the economy? Right, like they want to get voted in again. So the more bad feelings they engender among the populace, the less likely they are to get voted in again. Why would any government put us through what we're going through right now, if not for some greater public purpose?
Incompetence.
Uh-oh, you're behind all this?
No. But, we have public leaders that are telling people sarcastically to inject bleach in themselves. But again, don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that.
Do not do that, please.
If there's one thing you learned from this podcast today, do not inject any disinfectants or fire UV lights up your arse.
Oh, God.
Actually, the latter is fine. You just have
I tried it with a flashlight and nothing bad happened to me, so...
My most pessimistic when I'm not sitting here thinking that we're all fucked, I just sit around thinking that the list of nominations for the Darwin Awards this year is going to be epic.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like they have to make a whole new category for to deal with pandemic stuff.
Yeah.
I guess.
Well, speaking of Darwin, how many of us were on a cruise ship in March?
Good point. How you feeling there, Randall?
Well, now that it's been several weeks, I feel much more confident than I did when I first got home. I have to tell you, coming through all those airports and everything, because our cruise left on February 29th.
Mm-hmm.
And, when there were a handful of cases, not, in any danger of apparently spreading to anybody who I might bump into. And then we're on the cruise and it became a running gag and we were all using hand sanitizer out the wazoo and people were making jokes and like only sort of half-heartedly hugging each other, but they were still hugging each other. Mm-hmm. And then we got home on March 8th. And on March 8th, things were really starting to hit the fan. It was March 11th that Canada made the order. I think it was March 11th or 13th. They made the order that if you've come back on a cruise in the last couple of days, you have to self-isolate now for 2 weeks. So I was pretty nervous. Like, what could I have contracted? Well, I knew what it was. Coronavirus I might have contracted in one of those crowded airports I passed through in the cruise ship I'd been on for a couple of weeks. I've got a father-in-law in his 70s who I'm one of the primary people for bringing him groceries and things. I was really quite nervous about that. But thankfully, thus far, all the various cruise lines keep a record rather of how many cases of coronavirus they've had. And my iteration of Royal Caribbean had none. The cruise immediately after us, we were on the Star Trek cruise. The cruise after us was the 80s themed cruise, and they had cases associated with that cruise. Well, and so then, super lucky.
Well, and then now they're saying that it actually might have been here much earlier than March, like in
January.
February, like in January, February. And I just remember like my entire dojo came down with something, and my entire office came down with something. So for all I know, I could have gotten it already, but who knows?
Yeah, I'm the same way. The end of February, I got really sick. Literally, the first 2 days, I was hallucinating in bed, right? And all this. Was it COVID-19? I have no idea. I still don't know. But it was the end of February. That's just odd. And the thing is, even if it was COVID-19, there's going to be mutations on the strain of the virus, right? This is what happened in Stephen King's The Stand. It's just that it was mutated so much, you can only do so much for a flu. That's why they have to update flu shots every year. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And once again, we divert our conversation back to real life and not science fiction.
The two seem so closely related right now.
Oh yeah.
If anyone's going to start a new writing project and they're going to incorporate the real world of pandemic of the COVID-19 pandemic, what would you write about? Would you write about the Trumps of the world? Would you write about the protesters who thinks this is complete bullshit of the world? Do you write about the noble healthcare workers and scientist types?
I have no idea.
Like for God's sake, I'm a federal police officer, and I've been cooped up in my apartment for 6 weeks, waiting. I had to shave my beard just in case I get a gas mask. I'm in limbo right now. I'm in standby mode.
Yeah.
Yeah, the impulse to write about what you are doing right now has been really interesting because, as you know, or you may know, I'm the chair of the ethics board of the university. So anybody who's doing research that involves human subjects, I have to review their project with my team. My team has to review their project. So I'm seeing all these research projects about COVID coming out, and everyone seems to want to write like edited collections about, what is it like to do philosophy during COVID-19? What is it like to do law professoring during COVID-19? The answer to me is fundamentally no one cares. Yeah. Hide under your bed with hand sanitizer and be safe. Yeah. But people do have this desire when they're isolated to create, and people's lives are so fundamentally impacted by this that it's one of those, do you remember where you were when X happened moments, and people just want to engage with it. They want to write about it. They want to try and create. In ways that won't be interesting to anyone who isn't them, won't be interesting rather to anyone who isn't them. But I get the impulse. I totally get it.
Yeah. Interesting. Derek, you've been quiet on this show. You okay, man? You're
I would not want to write about anything to do with the pandemic because it's just too real and too many people are dying in the real world. It's. I mean, I would want to write about the exact opposite of that.
So magic then instead of science?
Yeah.
A sudden outbreak of health. The first
a magic story where people can bring back their dead father to have an adventure with them.
That'd be cool.
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah. Or the first immortal human is born. And
that was an Onward reference.
Yeah, I had a feeling that's what you were getting at, dude.
Weekend at Bernie's, actually, but go ahead.
Nice.
All right, guys. We've been going on for almost an hour and a half now. Any last thoughts?
I'm aware
for me, I'm just very glad to see you guys.
Yes. Yeah. We're glad to see a representation.
We're glad to see your stock photo image.
Yeah.
That's right.
No,
it's nice to see that you guys are healthy and none of us had to mute our microphones in order to cough our heads off. And we're all staying relatively safe. Please do continue to stay safe. I think about you guys a lot, particularly my American friends who are in a place that is a little bit more dangerous than where we are right now.
Yes.
So keep looking after yourselves. And I hope you're all healthy. And thank you, Joel, for bringing us all together today, because this was a nice moment for me.
Yes, thank you, Joel.
Buy me a beer. Okay. Carrie, any last thoughts?
No, just echoing what Randall said. I'm glad everyone is mostly sane. That's a relative term, though, and healthy, and surviving this. And this has been great.
Derek?
12 Monkeys, Planet of the Apes, Babylon 5 Shadow Virus.
Oh God, he's reading the show notes.
No, he's reading. I closed the show notes like an hour ago.
Yeah, me too, actually.
Derek wants to keep it going. Derek's still thinking about being isolated with 7 of 9.
Oh,
but only if it's like her
Derek,
modern day look with the long hair. I don't like the cat suit. I think that just looks ugly.
Derek, did you finish Picard?
Yeah.
And you still want to be isolated with 7 of 9?
Yeah, she'll take care of me.
Okay.
I haven't seen Picard yet. So.
No spoilers.
I've seen the first episode. That's it. Yeah, I don't have Crave TV in Canada. Yeah, there's that.
You'll understand soon, Joel.
Please, is she still female? I don't know.
Yes.
There we go. My last words is it's trying times. We're living through something extremely serious. And I just want to emphasize the need to take care of our own mental health. Personally, I find anything creative, cooking, podcasting, writing novels, making arts and craft, anything you can do to be active, anything you can do to actually use your imagination, I think is very beneficial to people's mental health. That's one reason I actually went down this whole Disney rabbit hole. I also want to move to Florida, but I got some tax issues. So, yeah, being a dual citizen and all. But, that's my closing thoughts. Okay, guys. Thanks for joining us. This show is released as a podcast and on YouTube, usually the next day. Please subscribe today. Apparently, subscribing is a thing on YouTube. And check out our Discord, our little chat room. It's a great source of news and commentary. Sometimes it's active, sometimes it's not, but you can make it more active. We can also be found on 3 different channels of social media. We are on Twitter at SciFi Pubcast. We also have Instagram, which is more geared towards food, drink, anything restaurant related. Both these accounts are managed by me. And of course, our flagship social media channel is Facebook, which is managed by Derek. Thanks,
Why
Derek.
is it the flagship?
Because he's doing such a great job. If you want to email us, it's at management@SciFi Pubcast. Carrie, what's your Twitter address?
My Twitter handle is Carrie Blackfire42. That's KERI Blackfire42.
And Derek, what's yours?
At Derek JBB.
And Randall, what's your Twitter address?
At Randal_Graham.
And when's your the book coming out? Is it September, you said?
September 8th.
September 8th. Are you planning
Afterlife Crisis.
Are you planning on writing a 4th book to the series, or is it just a trilogy?
I've only been planning on 3, but who knows what the future will bring.
I like that. Again, being creative, you make your own rules. I love that. Great.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. My Twitter address is at Joel_Welch, WELCH. It's closing time. Please make it home and take care of yourself. We'll see you next time. Bye now.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Music provided courtesy of Logan Rathbone. Podcast logo by Jea Rhea. Copyrighted Joe Welch. Listen responsibly, and we can't wait for your next visit to our fine establishment. Cheers.